What are you most concerned about? Is it the violence or the sex or?
A little bit of both, the violence and the sex. The sex I'm very uncomfortable with. I don't know if I'm the only mom out there that is, but we're watching a movie at night, a late night, and you know something's coming up. It's, a kissing scene.
Do you find yourself getting embarrassed?
Yes, very embarrassed. And I do this too.
Yeah,
and we laugh, we make a joke, we laugh about it. And I don't want it to be like, I don't know, is that the right thing to do, or is it,
Well, we wanted to get the right answer, so we brought in, he's literally a neighbor of mine, Dr. Lawrence Balter. He's a child psychologist and a professor at NYU, New York University. He's here with us in our front row. Now, Denise told me, Doc, that her kids are watching, is this true, 40 hours? Do they really watch 40 hours of television a week?
No, really no. But, we're
You're
doing
saying
stuff.
on a high end.
Yes, that's very high end.
But you did say that you're watching a lot of TV, and there's TVs all over the place.
All over the place, in every room.
Well, I got to tell you, on average, kids are watching around 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
So that's like 28 hours a week, so you're on the high side.
Yeah.
Now, TV isn't all bad. Let me start out by saying that.
Okay.
It's not all bad because, after all, it's an opportunity to see things you might not otherwise be able to. You can't take a safari to Africa, but you can see animals up close and personal on TV.
My niece learned so much from watching Discovery and Learning Channel when she was a young lady, and was telling me all this stuff I didn't know about the world.
My 11-year-old does too.
And that's the key to it. It's what they're watching, not just the number of hours, but they're watching wrestling, slam down.
I know.
They're watching all kinds of violent stuff. That's not the best idea in the world.
But what about like the news? Is that okay
news
to watch?
Is an interesting
because
thing.
there is.
Yeah.
I don't want to skip too far past the wrestling. I want to get to that. Because you see this sometimes in the news. The kids say they were mimicking kids that have committed violent crimes. They blame it on TV, or they blame it on the wrestling. Is that a legitimate thing? I mean, can television really affect and alter the behavior of a child?
Well, undoubtedly, what you see on TV affects your behavior. Now, this is true for younger kids more than for older kids who can't really separate what's okay to do and what's not okay to do. So a little kid who's 4 years old, as a preschooler, might jump off something very high because they see it being done. Or they might slam another kid because they've seen it done on TV and not think about the consequences or the impact they're having on another child.
That was the news story in question. It was very, very small children that were roughhousing, and so that plays into it too, the different age groups, because it's separation of fantasy from reality.
For the younger child.
Right.
As they get older, of course, they have better judgment and they know things they shouldn't do. But still, what you see on TV colors how you see the world.
Right.
And how do you learn about relationships besides actual relationships? You see relationships being modeled on TV.
Yeah.
You see people's interactions being modeled on TV. You get a sense of what's normative, what's normal, it would appear, on TV, even if it's not. But that's a sense you get.
So we're going to learn more about how to watch TV with the kids, with the doc, when we come back. Hopefully we're good for everybody. This doc's got the lowdown on what all that TV violence really does to your kids.
And one of the things that's very elusive, we don't really think about, is
Then and we brought in one of my neighbors, Dr. Lawrence Balter, from right here in New York at NYU. The two things that she is most concerned about are sex and violence. So we've got a couple of really short, just little 10-second clips here. Let's watch the first one that addresses TV sex.
Carlos, are we gonna make it?
We just did.
yeah. Now that's really great for a 4-year-old.
I know, right? Well, that's, it's probably something that she's dealing more with your 11-year-old, right?
Yes.
Up a little bit later at night.
If I watched that in the room with them, I would be like this.
So the idea is not to watch that in the room with them, because that's really not stuff for the kids to watch. And we talk about watching TV, but you don't have to just think about it like watching TV. Now, I know you have TVs all around. You may have to change that a little bit. But, there can be let's watch certain programs, not just let's watch TV.
Right.
Although I know as a parent and other parents around, sometimes you just need a break, but it's really better. I know it's hard, but it's really better to let's pick out the programs we're going to watch today and not just let's watch TV. That kind of stuff is not great for the little one, but I wouldn't expect the little one to be up at that hour.
No, he's
But
not.
they rerun, not Desperate Housewives isn't in the daytime programming yet, but, I was talking to Denise before. a lot of stuff, you know, Sex and the City, Sopranos, some of my favorite shows, they're on during the daytime hours now on different channels, you know, in second viewing.
There's an
And
opportunity.
they're edited, but there's still a lot in there.
Well, yeah, it's racy anyway, but it's you know, besides the editing, they leave in enough stuff for innuendo, you know, for kids to figure out what's going on. It's an opportunity with the older ones to talk to your kids about what's going on and say, look, she just did that with him. Is that something that's really appropriate? And to talk about stuff that they don't talk about on TV, like values that you want to convey to your kids, to talk about sexually transmitted diseases, things you're not going to see on TV, which is your role as a parent.
And use it as a platform. I mean, that's where television can be helpful, to get you talking about your kids instead of going like this. It'll get the ball rolling. So if you are in the room with the older child, maybe the 11-year-old, that's an opportunity for you to discuss how you feel about those things.
And to draw them out. And find out what their thoughts are, what do they think is going on, how it might have been done otherwise. And you can always ask, any of your friends tell you about? Because they never talk about themselves.
No.
It's always, I have a friend who.
And he's learning about health and
in school.
Health, so it's really the 11-year-old.
So you have an opportunity to find out what they know, and then to have a dialogue yourself.
Right.
I mean, there are things you can do as a parent to control something.
If you see the sex or whatever, then just talk about it. Now let's deal with violence. I mean, this is a clip from the nightly news.
You know, this is way too violent for anybody to watch. It's even
But that's
horrible.
the news.
Yes,
I mean,
that's
how,
right.
you know what I mean? You can't gauge. I mean, she just puts the news on.
Right,
You think,
and you don't think about it really. You think of programming being violent, but you don't think the news. But news they have cut-ins during the day when something horrible happens. If something terrible happens,
we're at war. Hello.
Yes,
so
that's
you know,
right.
I mean, there's no. And I personally, I don't have kids, so I don't want to step on toes, but I don't think you should guard your children against what goes on in reality in the world.
You shouldn't guard them against what goes on, but you need, with younger children, to really do it in the right dosages.
Right.
If kids see the same thing over and over and over again, their view of what's going on, it's continuous. It's nonstop.
Right.
And it's scary to a kid. Young children do develop fears when they see stuff like that happening constantly.
Well, I found that frightening, and I'm
that was
38 years
to see.
old. So.
Yeah, that's horrendous. But it's very important for kids to not get the same dosage as adults don't even want to see that stuff either.
Yeah.
It's really too much. Violence also trickles in. Young children, you might have the news on in the background or the TV on, and then you watch your kids and they're fighting suddenly, or they're doing stuff that shows that they're scared. Well, what's making them scared? Well, it's sort of filtering in, even though you're not directing their attention to it.
Yeah.
It's on all around them, and they're hearing it behind them, sort of like osmosis. So violence that's a rough thing. Violence is more concern to the experts than sex on TV, because watching a lot of violence sometimes gets people to be insensitive to what violence does to other people, and it also says to you, you can use violence. Yes.
Yeah.
And you can use violence as a way to solve problems. That's a big deal.
So what do you do?
Well, you have to point out to kids what's going on and give them the context.
Gotcha.
You know? First of all, is there some tragic thing? Like various things go on TV besides the war or demonstrations. There are cataclysmic things happen. You explain to kids what happened, give them a context, talk to them about what other opportunities might there be to solve that problem. And one of the things that's very elusive, and we don't really think about, is that when the good guy does something aggressive or violent against the bad guy, it's even more troublesome than if a bad guy does. When people watch a bad guy do something, they expect, oh, he's a bad guy, he does that.
When you see a police officer or soldier or doctor,
it sort of justifies it and makes it seem like it's an acceptable means to solving a problem.
So for that, I would say you're saying don't just leave the TVs on in the background, because stuff could be filtering in. Make a choice if you're going to sit down and watch the news with your kids, that you might have to be able to discuss some of those things with them. Are we being helpful?
Oh, very. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. V. We're going to bring Dr. V back, not only because he's a neighbor, but because he's so smart about TV. We're going to make a dinner that's good for everybody up next, a nice gnocchi supper.